Welcome to the show, welcome to the show. Here to give you knowledge that you didn't know. Put you on some game, now you got a buzz. You are now listening to Cannabruhz. Yo, what's up? What's up? Good afternoon. Well, hey, what's up, everybody?
Depending on what side of the world you're on.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Man, welcome back to another edition of the Cannabruhz Live. We take the Cannabruhz podcast. We give you the real in real time. Of course, I am Jarrell.
And I'm Corey.
And we are the Cannabruhz. That's right, man. Well, we pretty much just aim to make sure you're aware, make sure you're educated, and to be able to make the best decisions when it comes to getting in the cannabis game or becoming or remaining compliant in order to avoid a treacherous IRS audit. That's what we do. Corey and I being in the financial service industry ourselves, understand the plights, whether it be through speaking with our clients or it's from simply, having that powwow with our financial service brothers and sisters out there, right? But we love having different type of conversations. So the Cannabruhz Live is here to bring those conversations to you right on the spot. All right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So look, before we get started, this edition of the Cannabruhz Live is sponsored by Harvest Accounting Firm. All right. It's the #1 cannabis accounting firm in the state of Texas, servicing all 50 states, however, which include but are not limited to cannabis tax, cannabis accounting, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax strategy, to say the least. As we always say at Harvest, we are with you from seed to success, with our specialized chart of accounts, compliance-driven service, and guided financial service assistance to help protect your cannabis in that eventual IRS audit. If your cannabis business is keeping you up at night, you're not sure about the state of your books, your POS system tracking, or if your accountant truly understands that your needs are different from a traditional non-cannabis business, then please click on the link in the description below, and we'll make sure we get that up for you guys so you can book your free 15-minute strategy session with people who get it and who are willing to teach it. All right. That's going to be calendly.com/harvestaf/strategy session. Go now. All right. So we here at Harvest, like we always say at Harvest Accounting Firm, are always about the now, but and about taking care of business. But we also like to have a good time, man. You know what I haven't got a chance to do, Corey?
What's that?
I haven't had a chance to go out to South by Southwest. I know that's crazy.
Man, I'm right there with you, man. I've always wanted to go to South by Southwest, but life always has found a way to get me out of the loop and or preoccupied with something else. And it's Austin. Who doesn't enjoy going to Austin?
Right. Well, I do. I even got my in-laws are in Austin, matter of fact. Right. So I'm always in Austin, but I always seem to miss South by Southwest. We actually have some friends, though, that have something going on at South by Southwest. And you know what? We could talk about it all day, but instead, let's let a friend of ours tell you about what's going on at South by Southwest.
Huge announcement alert. Unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard of a little event we have here in Austin, Texas every March called South by Southwest. Well, I'm Leah Laxton. I'm the co-host of the weekly Clubhouse Room Texas Cannabis Roundup, and I'm excited to announce that Weed Maps has pulled through to help us make the Roundup a live event on March 19th as an official South by Southwest event. right here in Austin, Texas. The mission of this event is to increase awareness about the limited access to cannabis that Texans have, along with veterans issues, and provide an opportunity for high-level industry networking. So roll through, come hang with us. And if you're a business owner and you'd like to see your logo up there with Weed Maps and South by Southwest and get all the other opportunities that are available, we have a few limited sponsorships available, and you can DM us or drop in the clubhouse and let us know that you're interested. All right, Cannabruhz, back to you.
Hey, that's what's up. Well, we appreciate you choosing our platform as a way to get the message out about what you guys have going on with Texas, Texas Cannabis Roundup. So go out to shop South by Southwest this year if you haven't had a chance. Man, if I wasn't going to be in Miami at the time, I would definitely be there to check them out. But once again, we just want to give a big shout out to Greenlight Events, and specifically Leah Laskins and our boy Dalton O'Neill from Greenlight Events. So shout out to you guys and good luck with the event. You guys go out and have a great time with Texas Cannabis Roundup at South by Southwest. All right.
What we always say is support the movement, and this is that time. It's perfect opportunity to tune in or attend the event at South by Southwest and show your support for cannabis and show your support specifically for Texas cannabis, because we know it's a long time coming. It's been a lot of sweat equity put into get some type of legalization and or decriminalization of cannabis in Texas. So, hey, show your support.
Yeah, and somebody that's here today, that's a great segue. Somebody that's here today to show support for the cannabis movement and speak about some things that's going to help you with your business and speak about why you should be voting towards certain legislation that's going on in the state of Oklahoma is Felina Rivera, Esquire. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Felina. Felina is a civil litigation and cannabis attorney who has represented a large array of clients in the areas of tax law, insurance, defense, personal injury, family law, consumer litigation, and of course, cannabis law. Within her cannabis law practice, Felina assists clients with all aspects of their businesses, including guiding clients through the licensing application process, zoning and building permits, industry contract negotiations, and OMMA compliance. Okay, a little bit more about Felina. Yes, we're going to a bit more. Felina graduated from the University of Oklahoma, the College of Law, in 2013. She is admitted to practice law in the state of Oklahoma, the Western District of Oklahoma, and federal tax court. All right. In addition to her legal career, Felina is also an active musician. She can often be found playing guitar and singing at your local live music venues throughout the state of Oklahoma. So without further ado, let me give a huge Cannabruhz live welcome to the amazing Felina Rivera, Esquire.
Hello. That was quite the intro. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, well deserved. Felina, say hello, of course, to the audience.
Hello. It's good to see everyone, virtually speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Felina, I guess the new way we've gotten used to connecting with people now from
true.
our offices and our homes. This is the new way for now, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've even had court hearings via Zoom since COVID. So it's definitely the new thing.
Wow. That is so crazy. I noticed that. I saw that online that people were going to court and handling huge legal obligations via Zoom or via video call. Yeah. So
I always make sure my name says properly, though. There's been some funny incidents of bad names being popped up on the screen when you chime into the audio. Gotta be sure your name is on there correctly.
That's true. I've seen that too. That is hilarious. Well, So Felina, along with the audience, we like to tell you that normally we just like to give a little quick overview to like what the audience can expect from a Cannabruhz live show. So once again, thank you for joining us today. As of course, Corey is going to do our overview and let you guys know exactly what you can expect going forward with this broadcast.
All right. So today we will have a discussion that concerns you if you're having doubts about your cannabis business being compliant. If you need to know the updated laws and bills passed in Oklahoma State Legislature, what's going on with licensing, is your business truly set up to benefit you the most at tax time, and the big debate of the year, do we need social equity?
All right, so we're gonna get into it. We do so, Felina, with our Cannabruhz podcast, right? We typically do these segments, and we break them down. We do a plug talk. We do a plug talk is like where we plug in these great businesses and people in the service industry. It could be somebody with a cannabis adjacent business where they're promoting accessories, or it could be anything pertaining to cannabis, right? And of course, with Plug Talk today, of course, it's been about Texas Roundup at South by Southwest. One of the other sections of our show is a thing we call Word on the Street. Okay, and with Word on the Street, it's exactly what you assume it is, right? It's us speaking about rumors and gossip and information, or really crazy stories, or these bright highlight stories that pop across our screens and our telephones and everything like that when it comes to cannabis and the cannabis world, right? So today, having you here, we had to focus on Oklahoma, particularly some proposed bills that could change the landscape of everything going on for Oklahoma cannabis businesses and cannabis consumers. So let's get started with today's version of Word on the Street. All right. All right, Corey, let's get started, man.
All right. So one of the first categories that we wanted to get started with, there's a phrase nowadays that everybody's saying is no cap. No cap.
No cap.
So that's what we're going to call this first topic for Word of the Street is we're going to talk about the cap on different either municipalities, or the cap on the number of licenses based off of the vote of people. So I think the first one we could talk about is the municipalities. So that'd be House Bill 2987, brought by Representative Olson. And so ultimately what they're discussing is capping the number of licenses by municipalities. And we really thought that was interesting. We're especially when it comes to, you see cannabis, throughout the nation, of course, right? And there are certain states that really limit the amount of cannabis licenses that they're going to, whether it be 100 or a small amount of licenses. In my opinion, I think that kind of sets up for monopolies. In my opinion, it allows the big business to come in and acquire up some of the few licenses that are out there on the table, and it allows for that market to be monopolized. So what's your take on that?
Sure. So in Oklahoma, we actually have one of the lowest costs to get into the business. Most of the licenses are only $2,500. And so that resulted in, after 2018, when it became legal in our state, that resulted in, an influx of people coming in trying to get their licenses. And now I believe there's over 12,000 licenses issued. around 9,000 of those are grows. And so the market is just saturated. And because there was really no limitation and it was so easy to get a license in the state after it passed by a vote of the people, now the representatives are going, oh, well, crap, like this has gotten too big. This is out of hand. What can we do? And so last session, I always follow all of the cannabis legislation, and I report on that to my local bar association for the state. And so last session, there was a cap proposed that would stop the number of businesses that were being issued licenses as of a certain date. And then it was going to reduce the number as licenses were revoked or relinquished till it got down to a more reasonable amount of licenses. They had some arbitrary numbers capping them. That bill didn't pass. There was a huge uproar of constituents going, hey, like this is a free industry, and Oklahoma, that's not what we voted on here in the state. And so it didn't pass, but now this year has rolled around and there are around 6 bills proposed, including the one that you referenced, that in some form or fashion would either cap the number of business licenses that are being issued, or it would give OMMA, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, which is the state agency in our state that oversees the licensing process. It would give them, several bills give them the power to place a moratorium on processing any more licenses and sort of just carte blanche to just kind of stop doing it. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm not sure that I really agree with any of the capping proposals in the way that they have been written so far. But I do understand that there may be a need for it because the industry is kind of out of hand. And as a result, in our state, the price is gone way down for legal cannabis. And, that can prompt the black market to amp up. And, that's the exact opposite of, what we want to do. So I think there's a fine line between capping those licenses, finding a middle ground that makes everybody happy. And I don't know that it's been achieved yet or proposed yet this session, but it's certainly a hot topic in our state.
Yeah. I have to ask, do you feel, because you said you don't necessarily agree with capping, right? Is there a reason why do you feel like it just limits the amount of opportunity? And Oklahoma so far has been known for having so much opportunity to be a entrepreneur or a cannabis business owner.
Well, I think part of the reason is just my personal belief that, you should have freedom of industry. I mean, what other industries do we say, no, you can't have any more of those? We don't do that. Why is cannabis singled out? I mean, there's not a limit on number of liquor stores that we have on each corner, so I don't understand. I think it perpetuates the stigma that this is something wrong. This is medicine. And if we are going to limit the number of businesses that can be licensed, we have to do so thoughtfully. There's a lot of rural areas in the state and they need their medicine too. And so I think that there's a lack of understanding at the legislative level that this is truly medicine. It is an exit drug for people who have been addicted to opioids. It helps with PTSD. There's so many benefits and it needs to be treated like a respectable medicine rather than a street drug. And so that's, I think, my beef with it.
Man,
it's a very interesting point because it shows both sides of the spectrum. So it shows the potential impact of having too many licenses, as you were saying. So then the market could become oversaturated, drives prices way down.
Which is happening. Yeah.
Right. Compared to the other side of, okay, we're capping the amount of licenses to a low number, which now makes the market less competitive, which, as I was saying before, allows businesses to be acquired, and it can allow for monopolies and everything. So it's great to see it from both perspectives in that sense. I did have a question though. You mentioned the black market and how that could fuel the black market. So, from my thought process would be, um, it would. Well, I guess let me say what I'm thinking overall. So I would imagine if the prices were low, then that would impact the black market negatively because it's like, well, I can just, I mean, the store down the dispensary down the street is, they're selling an eighth for, whatever the amount it is they're selling it for. Versus, I would imagine, like on the flip side, if there's like limited licenses, then that allows for kind of like, is it Oregon? I think it's Oregon or California. It's California. I'm sorry. The prices are so high that it fuels the black market. It's like, well, look, man, if you're charging $80 and Greg down the street charging 20, I'm going to go with Greg.
Right? Sure.
So,
yeah. Well, so I think there's another side to that as well, because, for example, there were almost 100 bills proposed this session pertaining to cannabis. It's the overregulation of it in general that makes the business, the entrepreneurs, the people who own the businesses just kind of want to throw their hands up and go, well, I can't keep track of all this. I'm just going to grow my weed and sell it on the black market because I don't want to mess with all of this regulation. The legislature is just bombarding them, and every 3 to 6 months the OMMA is issuing new emergency rules. You just can't keep up with it because they're it's just constantly a moving target. Mm-hmm. And so I see, and I represent business owners. So I guess I think about it more from that side than from just the general consumers. Mm-hmm. But I just know that my business clients are like, if they can't afford an attorney to help keep them compliant, which, that I do that for them, but there's plenty of businesses who don't. And they're just like, I can't keep up with this. I'm just going to go grow my weed and sell it to my neighbors. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I meant. And with the capping, I think I mentioned, I was more concerned about the rural areas not being thought of, because I could definitely see, if you place a cap and, like I think one of these bills, if the municipalities or the counties don't elect a number to cap it at, then it's just automatically limited at one a year. Like where are they going to get their medicine if there's only one dispensary and you live in a county that you have to travel, an hour across to get to the one dispensary on the other side of the county line? It's just, I don't know. It's so nuanced and it's hard to say. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I don't know how it should be, but there's, it's very nuanced and it needs to be these bills need to be thoughtful of all sides before they're passed.
I completely agree with that. They definitely should think from all sides. And then, you're almost like kind of turning the bolt in my head about this issue, because now it brings me to question quality as well. Right. Mm-hmm. If you limit the number of licenses, you're limiting the amount of businesses. And then it's a certain way. There's a certain way that things can be done. There's so many different options and varieties and, that you have when you have, like you say, 12,000 licenses. If we, let's say, for instance, limit that to 2,000, right? Now the variety is limited as well. And now are we truly giving the public all of the real options? Like, are we giving them variety? Like, do they have the option to have better quality? And on what scale is that, right? The more businesses that are out there, I do feel that they do have a better chance at choosing themselves with their own research or however where to spend their money. They can choose, which business suits them, and based off of, whether it's the, just based off of whatever they go by to determine the quality for themselves.
Right. And there are things that need to be addressed in the industry here that I would love to see legislation proposed for. And one of those would be really coming out with more distinct, clear, uniform laboratory testing requirements so that we can keep consumers safe and clearly provide them with the information on the quality and contents of the medicine that they're purchasing. That would make more sense. And I get frustrated with the legislature because they're proposing things like, oh, well, we want all edibles to be in the shape of a marijuana leaf. Like, it's just,
right.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Like, it made me laugh, but it really is just, it just shows you the lack of understanding on that level of what this industry is about. And they just don't take us seriously. And it just, you know, so I try to educate, you know, I kind of straddle this line between, you know, the musician side and the lawyer side, and, you know, try to educate the people on my professional side, you know, that all those musicians smoking pot, they're not just losers, you know, they're people who are using medicine to help them. And, you know, here's what marijuana is really all about, you know?
Right.
Absolutely.
One thing that I found interesting, and I can't find the bill number.
Well, just tell me, I might be able to figure it out.
So it was saying that, so it's talking about the revenue allocation. And it was saying that a portion of the tax revenue that's generated, I think it said no more than 3 million will be allocated or proposed to be allocated to Oklahoma State University osteopathic medicine program.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very interesting because since cannabis is a Schedule I drug, and it's saying that there's no medical use for it, it's a high chance of I can't think of it. Abuse. Thank you. There's a high chance of abuse, right? You know, so cannabis, marijuana, whatever, is a no-go in the federal government's eyes. Yet now we have on the state side, they're saying like, hey, let's donate $3 million to the OSU Medical School,
right,
to help fund their program. And I thought that was very interesting. It's like, because it's like contradicts, and I get it's a federal versus state level, but clearly it's showing one that, I mean, well, financially, one, there's a benefit, a medical benefit to the doctors. But secondly, that, you know, there is chemically, I guess biologically, a benefit for consumers.
Right.
So I thought that was very interesting.
You know, everybody wants a piece of the pie. I suspect that organization got a lobbyist up to the Capitol, you know, to get that into a bill. And every year there's proposals for different allocations. You know, everybody wants a piece of the revenue. So it is interesting that, you know, a medical facility, which, you know, in theory has frowned upon marijuana use, is now saying, hey, well, since you're making some money at it, why don't you help us out? So, you know, there are research and education licenses available in the state that these organizations, if they truly wanted to be a part of it, they could apply for one of those and research it. And I'd love to see that.
And, you know, I'm surrounded by a lot of professionals, some being doctors, and I have conversations with them. You know, when you talk about cannabinoids and, you know, the system that it impacts, and, you know, a simple question like, hey, are y'all taught this in med school? It's like, no, we're not. They don't cover it at all in med school. So it's like a foreign topic, and or you know, of course they're dedicated to their craft. So, you know, naturally some doctors will think, well, since we're not taught it, it's not important, or it doesn't have any, you know, it doesn't have any type of benefit to the people as a whole. So yeah,
definition of you don't know what you don't know, right? Like,
it's just, that attitude is just so frustrating. It's so understudied, you know. So we've got to do the research on it first before we can make any claims. And I want to see more medicinal research be done about all the different cannabinoids. We don't even know yet. There's just so much we don't know. So,
yeah, I remember having a conversation. I was thinking of we took a visit out to Pure ISO Labs some last year, and we spoke with Scott there, and he tried to convey that message. Like, there's not a lot of knowledge about, we know some. They're not willing to know any of them, right? But there's still so far to go as far as the actual education piece. And if they were able to utilize the same resources that are utilized in other industries to truly do the science behind educating the public on cannabis, then we would be so much further along. So, I mean, when people say the war on drugs, I think sometimes we think of, I forgot the name guy you said, Greg, around on the street or whatever Corey mentioned earlier. When we think that's what we think of as the war on drugs. Oh, you're locking Greg up or you're not locking Greg up, or what's the sentencing for Greg and all that kind of stuff. But we're not thinking about the fact when there's no knowledge, like they're stopping knowledge. Like you cannot know more about this substance, or you can't know more about this beautiful flower that people have said before that it could cure many things. But hey, you're just completely shutting it out. It's kind of like those really strict parents, that just right, like whether it's I'm to use religion for instance, you maybe a preacher and preacher's wife, and they have a PK or whatever, and they just won't let them find out about that devilish music, so that's how the government treats cannabis. And it's like,
I know. And it just breaking the stigma of it is such a huge challenge. So it's something that we all have to chip away at.
Yeah. We're going to keep working, right?
And there was one more thing. So speaking of the war on drugs, I saw that for the proposed bill by Representative Hardin and Weaver says that they would allocate revenue to county sheriffs for enforcement of state medical marijuana laws.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, so, that allocation actually makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not entirely opposed to it because there is a problem in our state with not just black market grows, but, we've got these ghost ownership issues where, somebody who an Oklahoma resident claims to be the owner, but it's really, someone else, and they're not disclosing all of their sales. There have been some incidents of, child labor and human trafficking tied to some of these big grows that are not following the rules. They're bad actors. And we do need sheriffs, people who it's happening in rural Oklahoma. And so I'm not entirely opposed to funding those local sheriff's departments to do the investigating on some of these things. My clients, the people I work with, they want to stay above board, and these bad actors bring the reputation of the industry down. There's, like I said, human trafficking issues is really become a very ugly thing that's part of the industry. And so I'm really not opposed to allocating some funds to local law enforcement if they're going to actually focus on bad actors and leave the people alone who are trying to comply with the law.
Right. So that's some further legislation that needs to be passed to kind of regulate policing, because policing itself is an issue, right, outside of the cannabis industry and the cannabis market. So now I guess that it's always, that's how it works. A bill is proposed and then there's more action that's required behind it, even if it does pass. So, we all understand that's how it works, but that's one of those for sure. And you have opened up my eyes to kind of thinking about it in that way. When we interpret the things we read, you're like, okay, this is a proposal about just, I'm seeing it and I'm like, we're just going to give the police more money.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay. And
I
I'm
hear
thinking
you.
of so many. Yeah, right. I'm like so many different ways we could think about it. Like how many?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, but I understand the rationale behind it just being involved in the industry here in our state. So I hear you.
Yeah.
And at first glance, I'm like, but
Yeah, and that's just
that
thinking of it from outside.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that particular giving it to that particular law enforcement agency, the local county sheriffs, that makes a lot of sense to me if that's the purpose, the true purpose of it.
True. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that's just a little bit for everybody out there that we wanted to speak with you guys about pertaining to proposed bills. This is stuff that's actually on the table. It's just a matter of, like Felina said, actually passing these bills and then putting a certain action and regulations behind those so that everybody can be held accountable. But that's just something we wanted to give you today. And we have so much great insight from Felina. So thank you once again.
You're quite welcome.
Another thing that we promised on this live that we would go through and talk to the people about is the many different issues that could either weaken or strengthen their business when it comes to, when it just comes to being a business owner, a cannabis business owner. One of those things would be, which we've spoken about in our episode 6. It was episode 6 of our podcast, the Cannabruhz, the Don't Get Caught with Your Pants Down episode. Somewhere around 36 minutes and 41 seconds to be exact. But, shameless plug, shameless plug, right? But we spoke about entity structure, entity setup. Many of the cannabis businesses out there, they're thinking solely about operations. They don't. They just think, hey, I think I'm supposed to get an LLC, and then I'm going to get a really cool logo, all right, and then I'm gonna work on zoning. Then I'm gonna work on making sure I lock down the business or a business lease, and then I'm going to find the best quality out there, and we're going to market like crazy, and we're going to get crazy rich, stupid rich, right? But business entity and actually how you set up your cannabis business is super important. Can you help us out by actually speaking on business entity structure and setup?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is something that I do for all my clients, especially the ones who we refer to as being vertically integrated, have a grow, a processing facility, and a dispensary, which really is the most profitable way, if you can do it, is to grow your own product and sell your own product, so you can cut out the middleman and some of those price issues. But I generally have my clients set up a management company, and hopefully that management company, we try to set it up to where they're providing services to other non-cannabis businesses as well. So whether that management company is providing, advertising and branding for, say they also own a bar or a restaurant or something else, they've got some other business entity that they're providing services to. So you can allocate some of your expenses and take your normal business tax deductions under that entity's umbrella. Because as you know, and I'm sure you talked about before, Section 280E prohibits those normal business tax deductions for cannabis businesses. So, I have my clients set up each entity separately. If they've got a grow, that has one EIN. If they've got a dispensary, that's a separate EIN. Then we've got the management company. Maybe the real estate is held in a different company, and that different real estate company leases it to the cannabis business. So that in my perspective, hopefully you agree because y'all are the accountants and tax experts. So tell me if I'm doing something wrong. But I think it's all about alleviating or removing as much as you can off of the cannabis businesses and allocating those job duties and responsibilities to non-cannabis licensed businesses so they can take the normal business tax deductions, but also being careful that you are truly providing non-cannabis services and it's not just a shell. I know we talked about offline some of the potential risks for audits and how the IRS will interpret those sort of shell companies. So you have to be careful, but if it's a true separate entity, that's providing services to both your cannabis and non-cannabis businesses, then that's a great way to alleviate some of the tax burdens for some of my cannabis clients. That's usually how I try to do it. And each situation is unique.
Yeah.
That's one big thing. And I'm glad you said that. Everybody that's listening and watching now or in the future, each person is different. Each entity is different. It's not cookie cutter. One thing applies to everybody. So it's extremely important that you work with your cannabis lawyer and cannabis accountant just to make sure that you're structured 100% correctly for your situation. Just want to throw that disclaimer out there for they're like, oh, what she said.
Yes, that's sort of general, but 100%, it's very specific. Yeah. And I don't know if you mind me plugging one other bill.
No, let's talk about it. Yeah.
It was House Bill 3347. Tax burdens are such a big concern in the industry. Hopefully there'll be some federal legislation. There has been some proposed that would, provide some alleviate some of the tax burdens on the industry. At least on the state level, we've got this particular House bill that would allow for the normal business tax deductions that every other business can take on a state level. At least, it's not as much as it would be if it were on the federal level, but at least it's something. Right. And I did check right before we started our interview, and it did pass unanimously. It passed the Appropriations Budget and Finance Committee. They've got a taxation subcommittee. So it passed that committee unanimously, which is a great sign that maybe it'll move forward. It was proposed last session. It didn't go anywhere. I'd really like to see it pass this session just to provide the industry with a little bit of relief. So,
okay. So what's standing in the way, or what is the process like from here for a bill like this to truly become active for
Sure. So in Oklahoma, I think every state is different, but the general pattern's the same. You've got a session. We're in the second session of the 58th Legislative Congress in Oklahoma. The session, they had a deadline of January 20th to introduce bills that they wanted considered this session. February 7th, the session started. And so now the bills make their way through each committee. If it has something to do with the budget, then it, just like this particular bill, it went to a budget subcommittee. It's got to pass those subcommittees, and along the way, it may get edited. There may be updated versions of the bill, adding or subtracting language, and then it will eventually go for a vote within the either House or Senate, whichever one the bill originated in. And then once it passes either the House or Senate, then it goes to the other side to be then considered sometimes in subcommittees first to amend the language, and then ultimately for a vote on the other side, either the House or Senate. And then once it's passed, both the House and Senate, then it goes to the governor to be signed into law. And the governor can choose to veto or do a pocket veto and just not sign as well. So, we'll know by the end of the legislative session, which is May 27th, what has passed and what's going on to the governor for signature. And these bills can also come with emergency clauses, which would enable them to be effective more quickly. So usually if it doesn't pass with an emergency or it doesn't specify, it's November 1st of that year. So anything that passes this session would be November 1st by default, unless the bill proposes a specific date to be effective, and that emergency bill that is tied to it passes as well. And it's a separate thing that the representatives vote on, is that emergency section.
Oh, that's super dope. Well, that's really good. And, it has to mean something, right? The fact that initially it gets a unanimous vote, right? Like,
yes.
That's good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume
definitely
so.
A good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm also wondering, when you mentioned that, and I appreciate the information, of course, is that I know for cannabis, for the cannabis industry in general, when we talk cannabis legislation, to kind of sweeten the deal, it has to be good for somebody else, right? For another industry or for someone else outside of cannabis. It can't just be somebody that was part of the grassroots movement and everything. We know that for these things to pass, it has to be a little sweetener for the other side. What's sweet about this for someone outside of cannabis? Do we have the information?
I'm not sure. I don't know that I can. I mean, they're going to allow the cannabis industry to pay less taxes, like
right.
For them. But the particular representative that proposed it, his name is Scott Fettgatter, and he's really become one of the leading, and if not the leading, House rep that proposes all of the cannabis legislation that really ends up becoming law. So he's the dude. I've never met him, but I know that he actually cares about the industry. And so his bills, there are several that he proposed this session that they all really make sense. They're thoughtful. They show an understanding of the industry, and they would be beneficial to the industry. So I think he actually cares about the industry succeeding.
Okay. All right. Well, shout out to Scott and individuals like him, of course. No, that's awesome. That is awesome. I mean, I'm glad that a bill actually made sense when we talk, business entity structure and a lot of reasons. Of course, the main reason, the only real reason why you want to structure your business under a different type of entity is for the tax implications. Like to put it make it more favorable for you as a business owner, right?
Right.
Another thing that's a hurdle for the cannabis business owners, of course, is something that you mentioned earlier, which is the compliance. It's the reason why, those compliance issues, and what they say, the forever moving goalposts, right? When it comes to owning a cannabis business. How do you feel about compliance, and what do you feel is the most important factors when it comes to compliance that our entrepreneurs should know out there?
Well, gosh, that's a I don't know if I can narrow it down to one thing.
Right. Of course, yeah.
I mean, compliance in general, on a higher level in Oklahoma, we're supposed to have seed to sale tracking. There's been ongoing litigation and a particular lawsuit here in the state that has held up the implementation of seed to sale tracking. And so that has really made compliance, tracking hard. We don't have the data because we're not tracking everything through metric like some other states are to really see what's happening in the industry. So that's, that's a problem in and of itself. But with compliance, I think with the rules constantly changing at OMMA, they're issuing new rules each time. The constant changing is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lack of, and I say this as kindly as possible. This is a young industry, a young state agency in the state of Oklahoma, and I work with some wonderful people at OMMA. But some of the people that are going out and doing inspections don't understand what they're doing at all. They don't understand the science behind it. They don't understand. I have clients who have PhDs in microbiology and taught at Harvard, and they're, educating these state compliance officers who are coming in and applying the rules not equally across the board. There's a lack of training, a lack of knowledge. And that's not really anybody's fault other than it's just a young industry, a young state agency. And there's a lack of education and experience. So I think those are in general the biggest challenges that I see my clients face.
Okay, man. Corey, you got anything, your thoughts on compliance? I know compliance is a huge thing that you like to speak to and to our clients about and whatnot.
I mean, the big thing is understanding one that 280E federally is here to stay until it's legalized, or cannabis is reclassified off of Schedule 1 substance level. And so with that, comes a lot of businesses trying to maneuver and or the word I like to use is finesse Uncle Sam and try to create all different types of strategies. And what they end up doing is setting themselves up for failure in the long run. And they end up having to pay back taxes, increased penalties, negligence penalties, all of that, as well as they're not keeping their books correct.
Right.
We ask a client, hey, what kind of bookkeeping system are you using? Well, I have it. I took copious notes on a Wendy's napkin.
Yeah, or I have all my receipts. I have all of my receipts.
Right. Right. Okay, that sounds good, but if it's a state audit or if it's a federal tax audit, they're going to want to look for internal controls that you have going on in your business. Like, okay, they did, delineate between, as Felina was saying earlier, this one entity. They have it all. Everything is in this one entity. They have staff working all in this one entity, and then in this entity, whether it's a grow or if it's real estate, has a different set of staff, books, so on and so forth.
Yeah, Corey, I don't mean to cut you off, but I had, when we were getting ready for this live, I started, putting out surveys, trying to figure out like, hey, what do the people want to know, right? And I had one question that came back in pertaining to what you both have spoken about today, and that was having a cannabis business, but also having a non-cannabis business. And is there a way that I could protect? So just reading this off, if I own both a cannabis and non-cannabis business, how can I most effectively protect my non-cannabis business from IRS audits and suspicion of a 280E violation? Now, Felina, you spoke about this offline, right? And I wanted you to kind of speak to the people about it on what you believe, an option you have for that.
Sure. Well, and there's one little fact missing from that question that I would have asked, which would be, does your non-cannabis business provide services to your cannabis business? And I'm just going to assume that it probably does. Right. And so, I would say making sure that you have the basics, separate LLCs, separate EINs, but also separate email addresses, different percentage of ownership and different owners for each business, clear different purpose. And if your non-cannabis business is providing services to your cannabis business, if they can provide services to non-cannabis businesses as well, to where all of their revenue is not coming from just another cannabis business, that helps create a separation and legitimizes their non-cannabis business as a real, normal business, if that makes sense.
Right. Traditional, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I'm with you. Yeah.
One thing that we've seen,
and no commingling funds.
Yes,
that's the big one. Is that what you were about to say, Corey?
Sorry to interrupt. I
wasn't going to say that. But that is
stop commingling the funds.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh my gosh.
Stop going on vacation and you got personal, non-cannabis, cannabis, and all of it's just mixed up.
Keep it separate.
It's a headache for your bookkeeper. It's a headache for your lawyer, and it's a headache for your EA or whoever you have helping you on the tax side as well. Please stop.
So sorry to interrupt.
No, that was great.
Home.
No,
seriously.
What I was going to say was, so as far as, and I'm sorry, my camera is, I don't know what, it's trying to do its own thing right now. But when it comes to the let's say it's a dispensary, and they want to say like, well, hey, I have this section over here that's just T-shirts, bongs, bags, insert non flower products, but or cannabis related products, but not the actual plant. The thing with that is, and if they are generating
love it.
So alert.
If your non-cannabis products are only, let's say, 3% of the sales revenue, and the other 97% come from cannabis, then they're gonna, no matter if those are separate entities, they're gonna lump them together because they're not gonna count that as a functioning business. In addition to, if your brand is on those products, that's also can be perceived as marketing. So not just the oh yeah, it's just a bong. Well, yeah, but it also has your logo on it. So now that's a form of advertising as well. So and it goes more in depth than that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that sort of gets you onto the topic of whether or not you've got a separate branding company, and if that branding company is leasing the brand to both the cannabis and non-cannabis business, which is just another strategy for separating your entities. So, but again, that's why you need a lawyer and accountant to help you get your businesses structured correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've spoken about it before, I think on like our first podcast episode, that, hey, we are not lawyers. You need our help. It's our insight about, right?
Yeah, well, and I always tell my clients, I'm like, I don't know how to do your taxes. I can theoretically tell you, but you need to get a tax accountant or and someone who's knowledgeable in the cannabis industry. Just your general accountant isn't gonna know.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, man, we say, well, yeah, my brother's he's a CPA, and he oil and gas, and he has it down, like like, okay,
we'll see after you get audited when you pay 4 times the amount, so that's cool.
Yeah. Especially, that's true. It's crazy because when we went through the bills, I'm so glad we were able to cover some of those bills that were proposed, because we had pretty much an outline of things that we wanted to cover. Stuff like, of course, like licensing and things that will be able to help. There was one bill, and maybe one of you guys can help me out with which bill it was, but it was pertaining to 100%. I think I read that it was 100% of cannabis businesses would have to be operated or owned by residents, and if they weren't, they will simply be pushed out after a certain time. Is that familiar?
Yes. That is House Bill 3679. I have it right here because it's a hot topic.
Okay.
I think I mentioned earlier that there's been an issue with what's called ghost ownership. Currently in the state, any cannabis licensed business or marijuana licensed business has to be 75% owned by Oklahoma resident.
Okay.
And to have that residency status, that means you have to have lived in the state the last 2 years or 5 consecutive years out of the last 25 years.
Okay.
And you can prove that residency by if you own real property, if you have a residential lease, an Oklahoma driver's license, anything, any of Oklahoma tax return. Those are the things that they use to prove Oklahoma residency. And so I'll tell you, this bill that you just mentioned is prompted by the issue where there were some ghost owners. Essentially, there was these out-of-state actors saying, hey, we want to end the industry and we're going to pay these Oklahoma residents $10,000 to act like they're the owner, and we'll put their name on the application, but we're really the owner. And there was a big law firm here that did this for like people, and it has imploded.
Talking about a finesse.
The Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics is involved. There's legislation being proposed trying to just kick all of the out-of-state people off the licenses. This is 100% Oklahoma owned. So this is an issue. But this whole residency requirement issue in general has come up in other states as well. And if there was federal legalization, then it would not be allowed. It would violate the Constitution.
Yeah.
But because it's not, this is just one of those special things. It's unique to cannabis because it's not legal federally. And so the states kind of get to do what they want to do. There's no legal precedent for overturning it. And so, yeah, I mean, but that's where that comes from. That's why that legislation has been proposed. And what I find ironic is that on the other end of the spectrum, House Bill 3268 was proposed, which would allow publicly traded companies from outside of the state that or are from Canada that allow cannabis businesses in their own state. It would allow for established Oklahoma cannabis companies to sell 100% of their equity to these out-of-state publicly traded companies.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you want to keep it local, but you're going to allow the equity to be sold to these big, publicly traded companies. And that sort of goes back to what we were speaking about at the beginning of the podcast.
Yep.
Reducing the ability of the little guy to survive in this industry and creating monopolies. So it's all over the place. The legislation is all over the place.
It's definitely all over the place. And, we both, we work with the quote unquote, the little guys, right? I guess we're just not up to that level yet. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I love it, right? I love being able to speak directly to the CEOs, right? And be able to, hey, we're having this event and invite us out to these events and really get to connect with our clients. So it's a better understanding, right? And it's more trust there as well in the relationship between clients and servicers. So we speak from that point, right? And so when you hear us on our live, first of all, it's our live, so we can have that conversation, right? But we speak from the bottom, and so we don't, probably not going to lean too much, to not lean strongly into things that favor, MSOs or favor, the big guys, because we see the pain points, we see the issues, and, Felina is, I'm sure, late in the office trying to work out the issues of the little guys, right? So that's just the perspective we're able to help speak from and be the voice for those people. But, it does suck, it does suck that that is the reason why you hear people like Corey, who will tell you, hey, slow down on the legalization, right? Like, slow down on the federal legalization until we're able to know that the little people won't immediately be excluded from, the glory land, right? Like, once we make it there.
It's just got to be thoughtful. It just always boils down to having a better understanding. We need our representation to have a better understanding of the industry and propose laws that make sense.
Yeah. And that's a great point. That, first of all, man, these amazing segues today, right? But we talk about little guys, and we talk about the people. And if I twist it a little bit, the communities that have been most affected by this war on drugs, this continuous marginalization of liberties and rights, and it's been longer than just the 1937 or 1940s.
Don't even get me started.
Right? Don't even get us started. So I'll tell you guys a little bit of foreshadowing. We have been kind of touching, and now we are really starting to get in our groove when speaking about social equity. All right. So, interesting thing, and we spoke with offline, of course, about the fact that Oklahoma does not have one of these new innovative social equity programs that everybody is. First of all, it's not all green. I'm being very sarcastic when I say this, but because there's a lot of issues with them. But everybody's championing these social equity programs. But Oklahoma doesn't have a social equity program. And you were telling us a little bit more about it, but I would love to have that conversation now. Sure. And speak to why you believe that's so, and maybe get an idea on is that the real solution to be able to add what we would then champion as equality to the market?
Well, one of the most interesting things is that because Oklahoma's fees are so low for the application for a business license, without a formal social equity program, I think we probably have more minorities and people of color involved in the industry because there's not this high threshold. And I know in other states, not states that necessarily have social equity programs, but I know some states, you have to have owned land for, decades to even qualify to apply for a grow. Well, there are so many people. Myself, I'm the daughter of an immigrant. I don't have anybody in my family that own land for decades. That creates a barrier right there to social equity in the industry. So without trying, Oklahoma accidentally made it really accessible for for people of color and minorities to get involved in the industry. So I don't know that we would have done that on purpose because we tend to be a little behind the curve,
right,
in our very red state. But we are nothing if not fair, and I think we like our weed and our guns in our state. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird place to be. But some of the other social, I know I'm licensed in Colorado as well, and I don't actively practice there, but they do have a social equity program in Denver. And from my understanding of speaking with colleagues there, it's not achieving the goals that set out to achieve. And
I heard.
I don't know the parameters well enough to speak on it, but obviously they're not well thought out if they're not achieving the goals that they were set there to achieve. So it's like I said, it's just kind of funny that Oklahoma accidentally made it more accessible for everyone. It may not have been the goal, but I think it just kind of shows you that having just a free market, I think that's why at the end of the day I kind of get frustrated by all the caps and whatnot. I'm like, let the people do what they're going to do. The market, there's free, let us compete. Get in the market, do your thing, be the best. That's supposed to be a Republican, conservative thing, so just let the free market do what it's going to do and stop over regulating it.
That's strong.
So that's and that was all great. That was all great information. It causes me to think a little bit about it in the fact of, I think a lot of central southern states, I think, are going to adopt, and maybe I should just say Texas, maybe, but I think that'll be the approach that is taken, is low cost. So I'm thinking big picture. Well, if more people have licenses, there's more tax revenue, more funds to the state, so on and so forth. So, one thing that outside of people of color that everybody loves is green.
The one color we all agree on.
Hey, whether it's
green weed, green money,
that's right.
Yeah. Now, my thought process also is, Jarrell and I have spoken about this. So it's kind of it's like there's levels to it. So you have MSOs, and then you have the mom and pop or the small business entities that are out there. And as you both have said, and I'll reiterate, it's like we're all for the little guy, right? We're fighting for the little guy to succeed and make it in this cannabis industry. But then within the little guy is the equity, the social equity side of, so the people that were impacted by the war on drugs. And I imagine, so though everybody has the low barrier of entry for licensing process, purchasing a license, but there's still that impact from the war on drugs where minorities are still feeling that, or the lack of education and or resources due to that impact that's been there. So it's like I get the thought process, and as you were saying, maybe it wasn't intentional, right? It wasn't. It's like, well, look, let's just go make it cheap for everybody to get in, and
nobody complained, and they're doing well.
Right.
Well, and if I can just kind of touch on some other issues, it's a bigger issue than just the licensing for the businesses. I mean, now that we are allowing it to be sold legally in our state, we need to do something about the past incarceration and sentencing of people who have been incarcerated or are still carrying around felonies and unable to have their full freedoms because of marijuana possessions in the past or any marijuana related charges. Our state has the #1 incarceration rate of women, and it's really sad. And a lot of those are related to nonviolent drug offenses. And so they're really again, I get just frustrated every session when I see legislation proposed about making your gummies shaped like marijuana leaves, when we have these real issues that we need our legislators to address. There needs to be a clear line that if you have past drug charges related to marijuana, a past felony, that those felonies will be expunged. That way you are, again, able to own a weapon, able to vote. Those are the things that really affect the industry, or excuse me, the people of color, and would create more social equity, is taking those things off of their shoulders so that they can participate fully in our society. And it just doesn't make sense to continue to punish people for marijuana possession charges in the past if it's now legal. It needs to be remedied. And one more thing, I'll get off my soapbox after.
No, louder, preach.
The other issue I see just in the legal world pertaining to cannabis is that there's no clear rules about parents who have marijuana cards, who are able to smoke legally and are going through custody battles with their children. The courts are all over the board. The judges are all over the board with how they view marijuana. They're requiring stuff from doctors that it doesn't even exist. It's trying to penalize parents and take away their custody rights of their children because they popped a gummy. It's
right.
So I get frustrated that the legislation isn't addressing these things. This is what needs to be addressed, not the shape of my gummies.
Yes, decriminalization is something that, and just a little bit of foreshadowing right there, Felina. We got something really dope coming where we are speaking in a full series about social equity versus equality, decriminalization and versus legalization, and how we see it. It's a series that we're doing. It's how we're starting off and kicking off 2022 as far as our podcast series. So it's going to be amazing. So the first one is releasing next week. So if anybody's watching this live, we're definitely going to cover that subject. And I feel like we should clip that and put that right there in it, because that's the energy. That's where we're coming from. We all, if you're a person of color, it's a high chance that someone, you're affected because someone really close by who has been incarcerated or had to deal with the legal system from the unfavorable side due to the ultimate war on drugs, and this has been going on for a long time, generations. So now how that trickles down as far as this generation affecting the next generation, and the trajectory gets thrown off based on your bias about something that you truly don't understand. Mind blowing, and it's beyond me. So that is just crazy right there. But man, that's strong. That's strong. I appreciate you giving us a little bit of your heart right here.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I really care about this stuff. I'm not just in this business because I'm opportunistic. I want to help my clients in any way I can. And I love helping out the little guy. I love being a woman of color and attracting clients of color. And it's been an honor to, help them grow their businesses and become successful. And I take them on as my own. I care about their success just as much as they do. And I love working in this industry.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you, for what you're doing for the industry. What you're doing also, of course, anytime I see a minority out there really getting to it and making a difference and fighting for change, I just want to, champion that person. So from here to there, just we lifting you up at this time right now. The big Cannabruhz stamp of approval. Boom.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Most definitely. Well, we don't want to hold you guys a super long time today, but ultimately, we just thank you so much for tuning in, tapping in with the Cannabruhz one more time, or as Corey like to say, one more again. And of course, we appreciate Felina Rivera, Esquire, for joining us on this edition of Cannabruhz Live. But before we go, of course, Felina, please give them your contact information. There's going to be a lot of people that need help, and they need to know how they can get it.
Sure. So my law firm is called Renaissance Legal Solutions. We're located in Oklahoma City, downtown. I can be reached on the phone at 405-247-0647, or you can email me, Felina, that's FELINA, at rlslawyer.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at OKC Latina Lawyer.
Yep, you'll see that at the bottom. Yep, you see that right there? I think it's right below me.
Right there it is. Yep.
On Instagram, right there.
All right.
All right. On IG at OKC Latina Lawyer, man. Y'all go check her out. Much love, blessing, and prosperity to you for the rest of 2022 and beyond. So thank you so much. Of course, y'all already know. Before we go, I'm gonna hit you one more time because, as always, the Cannabruhz Live and the Cannabruhz podcast is sponsored by Harvest Accounting Firm. Okay, so that's the flag that we hoist in the air, Corey and I. All right, and again, if your cannabis business is keeping you up at night, you're not sure about the state of your books, tax planning, structure, and strategies in place to ensure you're using your revenue and income correctly, or if you're not sure if your accountant truly understands that your needs are different from a traditional non-cannabis business, then please click on the link below in the description, and we're going to put it up on the ticker, Corey. So you can book a free 15-minute strategy session with people who get it and who are willing to show you the way. Once again, that's calendly.com/harvestaf/strategy session. Go now. And if you come to us, we'll make sure if you need Felina's help that we can get you to her as well. So you're officially Cannabruhz family at this point, right? So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We had a blast, and we learned some things as well along with the audience in real time. That's why we love doing the Cannabruhz Live thing. So we hope you guys. Oh, sorry, Siri. Siri's looking for information too. Isn't that crazy? But look, Siri, don't worry.
Give her my number.
Right? Yeah, we'll play it back for you, and I'll send you the contact. Don't worry, Siri. But and that's how that go. Corey, hit us with the traditional send out.
All right. Thank everybody for tuning in, and thank you for watching, present and future. Make sure that you do hashtag HarvestAF, hashtag Cannabruhz, hashtag support the movement, hashtag more brown and black faces in green spaces, and hashtag HarvestAF. And what's the AF stand for?
It's Harvest and Felina who have your back. So, so don't hesitate to contact us if you truly need the help. And just like that. And we out?
We out.
All right. Peace.
Wow.
Thank you.